policymakers are relying on the people around them in many cases to make sure the right people are at the table. A lot of these policies that we're now running into the affordability challenges, they were formed without people who actually know how the systems work.
I'm Carolyn Parrs, communicator, coach, and host of Just Power, a podcast about creating a clean energy future without leaving anyone behind. Join me as we explore the technologies, policies, and human stories that can make clean energy not just sustainable for our planet, but accessible for everyone. We've looked at the data, we've heard from communities, and I've talked with leaders across the system. And at this point in the conversation on energy affordability, the problem is well understood. But what is less clear and where the real work is right now is what is actually holding up as credible solutions when you're operating inside the system itself. Hello, I'm Carolyn Parrs, and welcome to Just Power. This is our series, Leading Through Energy Affordability. And today, I am joined with Meena Beyers. She is the Vice President of Business and Community Development at NICOR Gas. They serve 2.3 million customers across northern Illinois, where those questions are being tested across communities, systems, and policy in real time. So it is so great to have you with us today, Meena.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's great to be with you.
All right. So across the country, it's not just happening in Illinois, right? We're seeing rising energy demand. We're seeing pressure on the grid and real concerns from real people everywhere. So where you're sitting at the intersection of growth, community, and customer programs, you're seeing all of this like firsthand. How did this work on affordability become central to you? And was there a moment or a shift where it became clear that this just wasn't one priority among many, but something different?
Yes, thank you so much, Carolyn. That's a great place to start because I do sit in a unique spot at the intersection of all things growth and economic development, delivering solutions for customers, as well as working every day with our local communities and leaders, community partners, and corporate giving. And at the center of all of it are customers and communities. So I can tell you what that's looked like in Illinois. We started seeing a shift during COVID. And we first started to hear from our customers that they needed help with much more than their utility bill. So for the past several years, we've been really focused on community partnerships that could bring more comprehensive services to our customers in response to that need. So then if you sort of go over the next 5 years to get us to today, we started to see the shifts in state energy policy, some local policies, and we're on the front lines of seeing how some of those energy policies don't necessarily translate in the communities that we serve with those intended benefits. And so we continue to work to design programming around partnerships that really, drive access and continue to lower energy bills. But then last summer, I think, is when we saw the real shift happen, right? And I think that's when the nation really started to see it. In Illinois, we saw what happened in the PJM capacity auction last summer and electric capacity markets across our region and how that really started to impact customers very immediately. And then shortly after that in Illinois, the release of the Illinois Resource Adequacy Study. And I think those several months there locally, hyper-locally, that was a decisive shift, I think, in understanding that this was something very different. So, I think, yes, data centers, we all know nationally that that's played a role in large demand. We know it's been wonderful to have acceleration in advanced manufacturing and reshoring of high energy industry uses, growing electrification and the use of EVs. And we're also seeing that it's policies across multiple states that are constraining supply, with sunset dates on gas generation, without adding new generation to keep up that isn't intermittent,
right.
Particularly that can handle all the winter peaks. So I think that's where it became very, very clear to us that natural gas, it sort of crossed this line of it's not just a choice that customers deserve in places like Northern Illinois. It's a real necessity to keep this economy going. to keep households and businesses going. And as a result, we are really stepping up our customer programming to figure out how we remove barriers and help customers that need it the most, some of which have never needed assistance before.
Okay, yeah, and we're seeing that also across the country. Let's just talk a little bit about Illinois and why natural gas, right? You're different. It's different, right, in the center of the United States. So
Yes.
it's not just there's clean energy. Illinois has a very ambitious clean energy, and then there's also reliability, right,
Yes.
and cold winters and things like that. So we hear a lot about all the above when it comes to the strategy. So what's different about Illinois in that?
Yeah. So, Illinois, I think the energy diversity in Illinois is our superpower here in the state.
Okay.
We have a large nuclear fleet. We have one of the most robust and modern natural gas systems in the country. Next to the Henry Hub in Texas, Northern Illinois is one of the busiest trading spots for the natural gas industry. And that brings us a lot of market liquidity, combined with our on-site, in-state underground storage facilities that help us, buy up natural gas in the summertime and store it for when we need it in the wintertime. That's what really creates that liquidity and really low costs in Illinois. So we enjoy very abundant supply of energy in Illinois, particularly with this natural gas system and our storage. And we enjoy the lower costs because of that market liquidity that we have here.
Okay. So are there trade-offs to that, right? How do they show up in your work?
Yeah. So we have always understood that natural gas is part of the clean energy economy. Here in Northern Illinois, in our service area, 95% of the buildings in our service area use natural gas for heat. About 75% of the energy that's used across all of Northern Illinois comes from natural gas. So it's not the kind of energy source. It's not the kind of place where you just flip a switch and you say, okay, well, we're not going to use natural gas anymore. That has to be a very planned transition, and there's always going to be a role for it, whether it's, to support backup supply for electric generation, whether it's to support industrial processes that don't have a replacement for electricity. So there is a long-term role for it there. But that being said, we still have a responsibility as a part of that sustainable future. So what that looks like for us, we focus on affordability programs to build efficiency in homes and businesses, and that creates those greenhouse gas emissions reductions opportunities. We support production and generation of clean molecules, so investments in things like renewable gas interconnections to be able to catalyze more of that in the state. And then, of course, just continuing to modernize our system and having superior operations that really helps us, reduce the amount of leaks on the system. So those are important roles, I think, that we play. We don't think of it as so much as trade-offs. It's, in order to continue to support this economy and have the reliability and affordability, which is a big part of what we're talking about here, we know that we play an important role in that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a part of the whole puzzle that we're trying to, right? It's an important part. And I know gas has been, for so many states, an important part.
Yes.
So let's just talk a little bit about electrification. I mean, we're having an affordability, as the grid needs to be upgraded, right? We see storms happening, data centers, large loads happening, right? So how should we be thinking about it when affordability is already a concern, right, for so many households?
Yeah, and I think a important part of that question is, how that electricity is generated and how that capacity is created to serve all of that, right? Because I think the way that electrification became a part of the playbook for a clean energy solution was on the premise that generation can become clean, 100% clean, and a grid can become 100% clean. And I think we all understand, at least in the industry, we understand again, that there's always going to be a role for, backup generation. There's always going to be a mix or a need when renewable resources may be intermittent. So as we work toward that goal, there is going to be, a need for diverse energy resources there. So how we think we need to be thinking about electrification is a customer choice, not a mandate, right? Here in Northern Illinois, policies that could mandate a switch to electrification, they would take this affordable and reliable energy choice away from customers when they need it the most, especially right now with the strain that's on the grid and how that's causing an increase in prices. Any customer that wants to, adopt electrification in their home and business can do that today. That's a choice that's available today. But when we start to look at mandates, and those come through in ways that oftentimes customers are unaware of, like new building codes that restrict the use of gas or municipal ordinances that phase out or penalize the use of gas. They're not only harmful to the communities that we serve and the residents and businesses who didn't really have a voice in that, but they also demonstrate just a lack of understanding of how complex these energy systems actually are.
Yeah. So is that happening in Illinois, where you rely on gas so much?
Yes. So in Illinois, as a part of the clean energy legislation here, it enabled the development of stretch energy codes, for example. So that is an effort that has been underway, and it is a constant education to help stakeholders understand what the impacts of some of those proposals are if they limit accessibility to abundant energy sources and affordable energy sources. The costs of implementing some of those, that's something we've worked a lot with communities on. And home builders especially have talked about that. We've seen it in just a few communities. We have two or three that have either adopted or are considering such policies. And I think that market response just tells you what communities are looking for. They're looking for choices that really support affordability and comfortable living for their communities.
Okay. So it shouldn't be mandated. It should be a choice for the community, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I will clarify, it definitely should be, at least while there's still a plan getting, putting a plan in place to be able to figure out what that pathway is to a clean electric grid. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's all the above, right? And renewable net, all renewables right now is pretty darn expensive, right? Our batteries aren't there yet, right? The capacity of storage for batteries, although it's moving in the right direction. So we need it all, right? We need it all, especially in as our grid is getting transformed.
That's right.
And customers are feeling the pain of that.
That's right.
So the central question of this series is about, what do credible solutions at this time look like? So from NICOR Gas and what you're in business, communities and business development. So what does that look like? Some solutions that you would say would be part of the transition that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, what do those look like, right? The credible solutions, they're rooted in a local reality. They use, kind of like we've talked about, every tool in the toolkit. So we're not, leaving anything in the toolkit, especially in this sort of, our industry's in kind of a triage mode right now, right? So you got to use every available resource to drive that affordability and reliability and supply, from generation all the way to delivery. So I think that's what we're seeing in credible solutions. And most importantly, I think, is that we're looking at the costs and benefits of those actual solutions, right? Not just offsetting upfront costs with incentives, but in the long run, what does it cost to own and operate and maintain these investments over the lifetime of those investments? So those are all just some of the things that we're looking at. So I think some of the things that we're seeing that are really working are, continued investments in sort of tried and tested solutions. Like I mentioned, our underground storage facility, where 40% of our winter deliveries are purchased in the summer, stored in that underground storage, and then delivered at those summer prices during the most expensive times to buy gas in the winter. That is a resource that benefits customers that should be maintained. It doesn't mean we don't also invest in long duration battery storage. It just means that we don't scrap the one that's working while we still figure out the battery storage, right? So it's kind of that. Creative partnerships is an area where we're really seeing the credible solutions working. Where we have really tried to partner, for example, with the healthcare industry. We have a Healthy Homes program where we've really tried to partner with the healthcare industry to remove barriers to really drive those savings for customers. A lot of times they have life safety issues in the home that keep us from being able to make them tight and efficient. And with those creative partnerships, we're able to overcome some of those and really bring that affordability to customers who have been unable to access it in the past. I think some of the other things that we're seeing in the credible solutions are like the data and analytics that goes into it, right? The real research. We're doing a project in one of our communities called the Smart Neighborhood. We've partnered with the National Lab of the Rockies to find the optimal technologies to make sustainable living affordable and reliable in new construction, really driving down the cost of new construction. And now we're deploying those in an affordable housing community that's being built by Habitat for Humanity. We'll continue to collect all the customer data as they move in and compare and understand, okay, in real life, how did these customers experience these technologies and how did they impact affordability of, owning that home?
How far along are you in that pilot?
So we just launched. It's very exciting because we just launched the demonstration home, our show home, where we can bring people in and educate them about the technologies last fall. And actually, in the next couple of months, will be the first 2 home dedications for the first 2 homeowners moving in. We expect, I think, about 10 of the units to be occupied by the end of the year. So it's really exciting. Yeah.
Right. And when you say affordable, right? Tell me more, because affordable to one person is not for another, right? So affordable housing, right, is what and sustainable, marrying those two, which often are not together, right? So just give us a glimpse of what that looks like.
Yeah. So the idea there is that, anyone can throw all the money at a home and say it's net zero or it's sustainable, and that it's achieved those goals. What we learned from our community partners in understanding the challenges of homeownership, the concerns, the stumbling blocks, is it's the cost to own and operate that home. So it's, owning it and getting the keys is the first hurdle. And then it's 30 years of trying to manage that challenge of being a homeowner. And so we learned things like, the need for the bills to be very low, yes, but also reliability, how detrimental it is to a household income to lose a week of groceries and how that could throw that household's budget off for a year, and then it takes them a long time to recover from that. So we took all that into account when we really tried to optimize these technologies. And so what we looked at was, if it was designed to be net zero or net zero ready at the time, or really just as efficient as it can be or sustainable. What are the lowest cost ways we do that while we have the highest level, optimize with the highest level of reliability, and that operational cost, their monthly bills, like lower the monthly bills. So we're testing technologies like heat recovery ventilation, for example. It's a great efficient technology that it improves indoor air quality, but it also preheats and pre-cools the air that circulates in the home and creates more efficiency. So, that's one of the technologies that the study found. Hey, this is like a super cost-effective way for the cost of building it into a home. It pays for itself and really gives back quite a lot to the homeowner. So it's those kinds of technologies, advanced building materials. We used insulated concrete forms for the wall. The incremental cost of building a home with that, it pays for itself over time in the bill savings that the customer is going to receive. So those are some of the things that we looked at.
So is this being spearheaded by NICOR Gas, or are you in partnership with, I don't know, a coalition of builders and material, providers?
Yeah, this has been the epitome of collaboration, I think.
Okay.
So it's really
that. Yes.
Yeah, it's really been led by so Southern Company has a number of smart neighborhoods. The first one was at Georgia Power or Alabama Power. There's another one at Georgia Power. NICOR Gas is Southern Company's first affordable housing smart neighborhood. When the whole idea is that we have a research concept that we want to test in sort of a living lab. So we have technologies or a theory that we want to test out and partner. Right away, we partnered with Habitat for Humanity, who's one of the biggest affordable housing developers in our region. And so we lead it, but there's so many partners at the table. Build Block is one of the partners. GE Appliances, GreenLink Energy Solutions is helping. There's rooftop solar on the homes. They're helping us with the solar applications. And then community partners. We've worked so much with the city. We have home builders that are active in our region who are working with Habitat on sponsoring some of the homes to be built. So it's, I think the list goes on and on about all the partners that have rallied around this idea.
Yeah, I think of this action of community partnerships has really began to soar, I think, through COVID, or at least, because before that, as I remember, there would be communications and helping. Oh, you need to talk to them and passing it on, right? But now I really just see the companies coming together and creating something together.
And I think what we're also seeing since COVID is this combining that with like real engagement, like really being together in the same physical space and working together. And I think our Community Connection Center is another program that we have that exemplifies that. We started it coming out of COVID, trying to provide services for more than the bill, right? Like beyond energy efficiency and energy assistance, understanding that our customers needed connections to other social services. We have a network of 350 social service providers that we wanted to be able to connect them with. And as we talked to those customers and learned about their needs, we decided to take that into communities. So then we started these community connections resource fairs. And I think we started with 3 partners at the fairs. And now a couple years in, we have 20 plus partners that come to these fairs and put on this, we have 300 or 400 families each time coming through and getting all of these services. You'll have Illinois Tollway and Illinois Treasurer's Office and local community assistance agencies. It's amazing. So I think it's that combination of the collaboration's kind of infectious. And it's also, there's just this hunger to be together.
Okay.
And have real engagement.
Wow. Well, I want to hear more about that, like as it develops, right? Maybe we'll have you back.
Would love to.
How did it go? So you've launched so many, or I would just say several projects and pilots, healthy homes, community comfort, smart neighborhood. If you had to point to one, right? And I know they all have their attributes, but one where you're seeing the most traction, right, for your customers right now, what would that be?
Yeah. One that I haven't really hit on yet is a small pilot that we just did this past year. And I first have to say, as the mama bear of all of these projects, they're all very meaningful and impactful. It's hard to pick just one.
Which of my children do you like the best? Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all amazing and impactful, but I think, to your question, we're looking for solutions to help customers right now. And what are the ways that we're seeing impacts right now? Well, we just did this pilot we call the Community Comfort Pilot. And in this, we took data analytics and tried to figure out where are the leakiest homes, right? Like where are the neighborhoods where, because of the age of the home and the size of the home and their usage looks unusually high, and it seems to be common around the whole neighborhood. And, the income levels are such that they can participate in different weatherization programs that we offer. So we sort of targeted a geography where we could have the ideas that doing concentrated levels of energy efficiency in this region could have a very profound impact in the community. So then we sort of immersed ourselves in that community. We showed up, we went door to door, we held community meetings. We had a contractor network come there. So instead of them trying to find a contractor, which is the traditional model, we said, these 3 guys from this town are your contractors.
Okay.
What that did is it enabled them to estimate how much work they would do in that community and sort of bulk purchase equipment and material, which then drove down costs. And, they're not rolling trucks every day from where their materials are to the site. They're in the site for a month, going door to door and doing this work. And this was just a big test because we didn't know how this model was going to work. The results were astounding and immediate. So, in that time, I think in a small neighborhood, the small neighborhood that we found, we completely weatherized about 30 homes in this neighborhood and in a very small sort of block, area. And those customers that participated in the pilot between November of 25 and March of this year, when we looked at their bill analysis from having weatherized them by October, they had a 20% monthly reduction of their energy bills through the winter. And we had a pretty severe winter here. That's an average of $31 a month that they paid last year that they did not have to pay this year. Right. Normalized for pricing and everything, significant bills. So they felt that immediate impact of doing that. And so that's where the collaborations, we're limited in how much of that we can do. And that's where we can't do it alone. So looking at, how do we bring other businesses with shared goals? I mean, there's so many industries that share the same goals as utilities and trying to help build these strong, thriving communities and build that, great livelihood and that potential for growth in a household and a business. We all share that. So if we're able to come together and figure out our piece of it, I think we can really scale something like this in a big way.
So there you go, scaling. That was my next question. So what have you learned, or what are you learning about what it actually takes to move from a pilot to really scaling this? Because I've seen pilots at utilities that never scaled, right? I mean, they were showcases, right?
Yeah.
But we're in an affordability crisis, right?
Yeah.
How do we scale this? What are you learning on?
So I think it's tricky in regulated utilities, right? Because I think we have to collaborate with our regulators to figure out a little bit more creativity to be able to put the investments where they're going to have the biggest impact and a lasting impact, not just sort of the immediate assistance for, the peak months or whatever, but these kinds of investments that really allow them to sustain those savings, summer, winter, year after year. So I think that's one of the challenges that we see in being able to scale pilots is having the resources. And Southern Company, our parent company, is absolutely a leader in this nationally, where, we're looking across the system at how do we bring different partners to the table, even data centers, different sectors, community partners to be able to all share in this, because again, utilities can't do it alone. And I think in the utility sector, it's true that we have to just build that muscle memory of like change agility, right? And the ability to we've been doing in that small example of that weatherization pilot, we've all nationally been doing weatherization the same way for 15 to 20 years. And this took a lot of things that were different, and our team loved that opportunity to just turn it on its side and say, well, why do we keep doing it this way, right? How can we do it better?
I see with the contractor, that idea alone, right? It's just it's a money saver. You have probably more control of quality.
And with limited resources, when we can drive down the cost of actually, the efficiency of the service, that means more customers can be served and benefit from those limited resources. So Operational excellence and efficiency is definitely, one of the levers that we have to be able to scale as well.
Okay. So what role should policymakers play in this, idea of scaling?
Yeah, policymakers, have always and continue to play an incredible role in this. First of all, I think we have to do a better job of educating policymakers, like with these details, right?
Yes.
We know that policymakers are so busy; they have a million topics that they have to become experts on, and it is a big investment of time for them to really learn about this. But I think our policymakers have been so excited to learn some of these policies. And in fact, they helped us pass some legislation last year that would actually give us opportunities to propose ways that we can expand some of these programs. So, policymakers played a role in that. But I think, like, first and foremost, it's asking the right questions. Policymakers should ask about costs. Who's actually paying for the things that we're setting out to do, and who benefits, and what are those benefits? What are those real benefits look like, and are they immediate? I think insisting on bringing subject matter experts to the table, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And policymakers are relying on the people around them in many cases to make sure the right people are at the table. A lot of these policies that we're now running into, the affordability challenges, they were formed without people who actually know how the systems work and having those people at the table. So I think having utilities at the table is really helpful. And I think for policymakers, and this is across many, many states, it's okay. It's also okay to change course. I think it's fair to say the world changed on everyone, right? But a few times. And none of this was anticipated. This unprecedented energy demand wasn't anticipated 6 or 7 years ago when a lot of those policies were put in place. And it is okay to pause on some of it and say the world changed, and how do we pivot to make sure we keep customers and communities at the center of this transition.
I love what you're saying, and I love that it's part of the business model, right? Because that putting the community in the center, or just at least part of the equation, really part of the equation, right? So that I'm seeing that across the board in many states, and I'm so happy to hear that they have you at the helm for that,
Thank you.
right? Yeah, because all of these pilots sound incredibly exciting. I'm like, how can we get that in Colorado?
They're really exciting, and I'll tell you that they get our people up and excited in the morning. They feel so proud to be a part of the work that we do every day. So, that's an important thing to know, is that in this industry, it's a lot of passionate people who deeply care about the customers that we serve.
Fantastic. I'm going to I'll put in the show notes some links to those pilots, because
Fantastic.
for others to see like what's happening, right, in Illinois, and how you might be able to, create something or shift it around for their particular geographic.
We would love that. I mean, they are designed to scale and share, so we would love that.
Scale and share. There you go. I love it. Okay. So if we were sitting here 3 years from now, okay, fast forward, what would need to be different for you to say we're making real, meaningful progress on affordability?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I mean, first, I think there has to be a thoughtful pause on some of the policies that are constraining supply or choice, or artificially creating or exacerbating the affordability issue. So I think in that time, we don't have 3 years to wait for that, hopefully sooner than that, but we have to have a clear pivot on some of those policies that are causing the increased costs. And then I think 3 years from now, we would need to see that increased reach and access. So I really think it's bringing many more industries to the table. A lot of times we think of these energy affordability issues as just the bill, but it can often be compounding, right? It's like, well, I have a leak in my roof that I can't fix, and that's causing a moisture issue in my home. So now I'm having breathing trouble, and because my healthcare bills are so high, now I can't buy good, nutritious
Right.
food. And now I have a food insecurity issue. And because I'm sick all the time, I'm missing work and school. And because my child's missing school, we don't have the internet at home to be able to keep up with the education. I mean, all of these things are related in
Totally.
the
One
home.
thing, like, parlays to the next and exacerbates the whole
It
system.
is. And so it's going to take, everyone at the table, each of those industries that has a role in solving, we can each play a part and sort of pool our resources together to do it.
All
So
right.
I think more of that, is
Yeah.
what success is going to look like for customers.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that in a real concerted way and
Yeah.
integrating it into your model. So, what gives you confidence that we can actually get there?
Yeah. I mean, I think we, what gives me confidence is that we're already doing it every day, and we're seeing it working every day in a very small scale, right?
Okay.
I see those outcomes every day. I see the data that shows that, the programs work and that the bills are lower. I go to the community events with my team and get the hugs from the customers because they're so appreciative of someone listening to them and being there for them. I get to see the ribbon cuttings of the businesses that are coming to our state and growing here because we have the energy that they need to be able to grow. So I see those outcomes every day. That's what gives me the confidence. Now we just need to figure out how to do more.
Okay. So you got the confidence that it is happening. It's happening in real time right now. And you're learning, right? We're
Yes.
learning how
Every day.
to make it even more efficient and ultimately scale. So it's not just an idea, right?
That's
It's
right.
a process. So I love it. Wow. Thank you. I mean, so uplifting to hear what utilities, NICOR especially, is doing on so many levels, and it comes to community, right? Which is where you're heading up, Meena. I'm so impressed. How
Thank
can
you
we
so
learn
much.
about it, more about you and what you're doing? And
Yeah, so I've shared a couple of links to learn more about our Community Connection Center as well as our Smart Neighborhood Project.
nice.
Certainly visiting us and our community page at NICORGas.com. I think leaders can feel free to reach out. We love to connect and build our network in this space. So I think we'd always love to share what we've learned and also learn from others on how we can do that. So hopefully we can continue to grow these connections and build ways that we can work with new partners as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And what I've learned from this conversation is that the credible solutions that we're all seeking are not coming from just one place. There's not just one lever, right, being pulled here. They're emerging intentionally, right, from a lot of different places. How we connect systems, how we bring in our community into the process, and partners like you've done, right? And all together, right? I always say we're all in this together, right? All together we can work on this, and it's in motion now. The solutions are in motion now. So thank you so much for sharing not just what you're doing, but how you're thinking about it, right? And going forward. And to you, our listeners, this is exactly what this series is about. Not just naming the affordability challenges that we're in, but understanding what it really takes to respond to it in practice. And I think Meena has really showed us that today. But that also includes you. So if you have an idea, if you have a comment today or an epiphany has happened, go ahead and subscribe to Just Power. We want to hear your voice because it's going to take all of us to participate in this energy transition. We are all in it together. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to Just Power wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really loved it, leave us a review and tell everyone you know about our podcast. It's going to take all of us to create a clean energy future that leaves no one behind.